You are listening to the Hodges Huddle, where we discuss all things in the wide world of sports. Here's your KLSU sports team.
Welcome into the Hodges Huddle. I'm your host, Andre Champagne, and today we are joined by Andon Brabham and Nathan Messina. How are we doing today, guys?
Doing good, man. Glad to be back on the pod.
Yes, sir.
Feeling good. Feels good to be back on the podcast. Feel good to be talking about some ball.
Oh, we talking a lot of ball. And talking about ball, lots of questionable play from the Louisiana teams this past weekend. So we're going to focus more on them today. But starting off with LSU football, they were defeated by Ole Miss by a score of 55-49. The LSU defense gave up a whopping 706 yards of offense to Jackson Dart and the Rebels in a game where you could just not buy a stop. So we're going to begin with the elephant in the room. Is this the worst LSU defense known to date?
Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, you look at 2020, that team gave up a whole lot of yards and a whole lot of points, but it wasn't this bad. I mean, in a game where defense was optional and you needed just one or two more stops, you couldn't even get it.
I think it's bad, but worst LSU defense in
think it
history.
is,
I
dude.
think that's a bit of a stretch, man. I mean,
They're 117th in the country.
I agree that
I don't
they
know
are-
if they've ever ranked so poor. I'm sure they have, but through this stretch,
I agree that this is a historically bad LSU defense, but the worst ever, dude. I mean, come on, you go back, look at those '90s teams, bro. Like
they're bad.
they were god awful. Go back to the '90s. Even before
Yeah.
then, bro, like those Curly Hallman teams, especially, like, dude, there's no way that this is the worst one in history, especially when you have a guy like Perkins. I just don't think you can, like, count it as the worst defense in LSU history.
I'll just rephrase it to worst LSU defense that we've ever witnessed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Without
That
a
I
shadow
agree
of a
with.
doubt.
Yeah, that we've been, alive to see. But I think last week is as bad as it will get for you. If we're being completely honest, I think, like I said, you look at the talent, man, and literally nothing there jumps out to you except for Harold Perkins and Mekhi Wingo. I feel like those are the only two guys, in my humble opinion, that could go out and be like first-round draft picks. But there's no leadership or communication on this side of the ball. Just a disaster right now. As far as worst defense in history, I'm still going to say like Bo Pelini's defense on a week-to-week basis in 2020 was worse. I'll say that was just horrible to watch
Yeah,
week in and week out.
This defense has had one good game.
Yeah.
Did they have any good games in 2020?
I think they
You
had
shut
one.
down South Carolina.
Yeah, but it was South Carolina.
South Carolina's COVID year, man. Like, I don't know.
I like I said, I don't know. I think Bo Pelini's defense was much worse. But what were the things that bothered you most from this defense? I know there's a lot, so just kind of like I know there's a lot.
Take your pick, dude. I mean, for me, and I said this on the Sunday show, and I've said it to everybody who's asked me, the front seven, man, it was a game where all week we talked about Jackson Dart has a turnover problem. And if you could force him to make mistakes and get pressure on him, you can create problems. And this front seven didn't do anything, dude. They got no push all night. They were getting gashed in the run. They couldn't create pressure on Jackson Dart. It was just so upsetting, man. Like, and you can't blame the coverage when Jackson Dart has 7 seconds to throw, man.
I mean, for me, it was two things, really. First was the flat-out just inability to tackle.
Yep.
I've never seen a football team not be able to tackle. That's like the first thing they teach you when you play football, even on offense. I feel like you learn how to tackle somebody when you play football. And it's like these guys have just forgotten everything they learned in Pop Warner football. And just, you can't, I don't understand how you can't wrap your arms around somebody and just tackle them. I don't know if it's
It's a mentality thing.
it's a mentality. They're not getting the right angles. They're not hitting hard enough. I don't know how
At
that's
the end
it's
of the
possible.
day, though, tackling is not a skill. It's an effort. It's an
Yeah.
effort. It's a mindset. It's a personal pride thing, and that's what I really think that this defense is lacking: is personal pride and effort.
Yeah. Second thing for me was the third down defense. I have never seen a team. It's so miraculous to me how they were actually pretty decent on first and second downs. Even on fourth downs, I think they had a stop or two. But for whatever it is, they see that third down on the scoreboard and just crap their pants, dude. Like I don't think I could count on 10 fingers and 10 toes how many third down conversions Ole Miss had. I don't know what the actual statistic is, but like it has to be through the roof. I don't understand how just on third downs you can be so god awful.
Yeah, I mean, I literally completely agree with you. I think the things that bothered me wasn't even the coverage. It was the fact that the defenders for LSU just could not bring a guy down to save their life. They slipped and fell off their feet every 2 plays, and it just shows how this defense has zero coordination whatsoever. Past LSU defense have never really struggled to take angles and make the open field tackle like this year. Like you said, Anna, it's at some point it's an effort thing. And it's been a nightmare seeing this defense look so confused, but that's a whole other side of the story. Like I said, I knew things in the classroom for these guys were bad, but I mean, I guess that's translating to, what kind of angles you're taking on the field. Like, this is ridiculous.
Now, you know they ain't passed geometry class, bro.
Nah, man. They don't know what a right angle is, bro.
I'm not going to go there, but oof.
Yeah, I mean, and so is this a Matt House problem or is it just the talent? Is it the talent not showing up?
It's both. And you knew the talent was going to be an issue going into the season. We talked about that beforehand, how the secondary is one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest question marks we said going into the season of this defense. That has been made evident that we are correct, that the talent is not there. But when you've got guys like just completely wide open in the middle of the field or on the outside, that comes down to coaching. That's Matt House just not scheming the right plays, or I don't know, the right coverage. Whatever it is, he's leaving just what receivers just completely wide open.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, I'm putting it 70-30, 70% on Matt House, 30% on the actual talent.
Yeah, I agree.
Because at the end of the day, no matter what kind of talent you have, it is your job as the leader of that unit, as the coach of that unit, to put them in situations to succeed regardless of talent level. Now, has Matt House put these guys in positions to succeed? I don't think he has. I think we're playing a soft, cushioned zone when we have physical man coverage corners, even if they are a little undersized. That's their game, is physical man coverage. And we're putting them in the wrong spots to do that. You're putting them in this soft zone where they're playing 8 yards off the receiver and they can't get anything going that way. And it's Matt House putting guys that already aren't necessarily the blue chip 5 stars that LSU's used to, especially in the defensive back room, and you're putting them in even worse positions.
I saw another thing today. It was a screenshot on Twitter that I saw, and it was I think it was from the Mikey Matuk show, but you could see just how far off the defensive line.
Oh, we played a lot of cushion.
They played
a lot of cushion.
Yeah, but
10 yards of cushion.
The defensive line is playing 2 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Exactly. They're like, they're not on top of the ball like they should be. I don't understand how you're
and
not on the line of scrimmage.
Here's the problem. For those that don't understand why that's a problem, when the defensive line is playing so far off the ball, that lets the offensive linemen return their hands and get their hands out and lock out and really get into their set and really get into their to their kick step. So when you play 2 yards off the ball, you're already giving this offensive line an advantage instead of playing on top of the ball, close up to them where they can't necessarily immediately get their hands out, and that's when you cause problems. And LSU's not even doing that.
Yeah, I think it's Matt House. I think it's the inability to be able to dumb it down to these guys. And then the other part, like we mentioned, is just like we said, there's no talent on this team. Well, there's talent. There's just not talent on this team to keep up with the SEC talent that they're seeing. You look at the corners, and it completely shows what we're talking about. Your best cornerback is a guy out of southeastern Louisiana, and they aren't even comparable to the SEC. I'm sorry. It's just a problem that LSU has never really had when you look at talent, especially at the cornerback position. That's really what frustrates me the most. But can this defense be saved at all this season, or are they just going to keep letting us down?
Yeah, I think there's nothing. There are things that you can fix, but I don't think there's any way to save this defense and make them a good defense. I think the best you can hope is for LSU to be below average defensively. Right now, we're horrible. 117th in the country, like I said. I think we're like 128th in pass defense in the nation, dude. And that is unheard of for an LSU defense.
And that's out of 133 teams.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Like, there's only 5 schools that give up more passing yards than you do.
Like UL Lafayette is better than you.
It's just
in that category.
unbelievable, man. And at the end of the day, there's a reason that these guys are at LSU. There's a reason that they got transfer offers to come to LSU. The talent is there. The physical tools are there. I watch it when I see these guys make good plays, that the physical talent is there. They're just completely not being schemed up how they need to. So if Matt House can finally pull his head out of the sand and figure out that he can change some things about this defense, because right now he's like an ostrich, bro. He's just got his entire head buried in the sand, and he refuses to change anything. And that I partially put that on Brian Kelly as well.
Yeah. You want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say I don't think they can be saved either. I think you're beyond that point. It's just not gonna happen. And I think that you do have to give credit to Brian Kelly for he is trying to do things to fix it. He is trying to change it by bringing a guy in like Pete Jenkins. I don't think it'll help that much, but it is you can see that he is trying. He understands that the changes need to be made, and he's trying to make changes. I don't necessarily think that's it, but it's better than him just sitting back and doing nothing. So, like, I don't think it'll work. I think this defense is past the point of no return, but maybe I'll be wrong, and Pete Jenkins will come in and just absolutely flip this around.
No, it's not going to happen. I think as far as the simple things, like the missed tackles that we've been seeing, the effort thing, I think that's going to get better. Because a loss like that, man, that really sets you to the point where you got to open your eyes. You got to be like, hey, are we tired of this? Like, are we tired of seeing ourselves on Twitter and all these social media apps? Like, at some point, LSU's got to care. And I think we're going to see that this weekend. But talk about how disappointing it is for LSU really to waste the best offense they've had since 2019 and possibly their second best offense ever with a defense like this.
This is undoubtedly the second best offense in LSU football history. Like, straight up. This is an LSU offense that has been absolutely lights out, even after they've started games off slow. So to have such a horrible other side of the ball just is so annoying and so disappointing and just so aggravating because it's not where we should be. It's not where we can be with the talent level that we have on this roster. I'm so sick of people talking about, oh, this defense just has no talent on it. There's talent on this defense, especially in the front seven. And there's talent in the back end as well. Guys like Andre Sam, guys like Terrence Welch, who I thought had a really good first quarter against Ole Miss. You are just absolutely failing these guys schematically, and it's just not working anymore.
Yeah, it's I don't know how else to put it other than it's devastating.
Yeah.
And there's no other word to describe it. LSU is 7th in the country in points per game. They're averaging 44 points per game right now.
It's insane.
And we're 3-2.
Yeah, and the defense is letting up 31 points per game, which is 107th in the country. So the defense is 100 spots nationally behind the offense, which is just unbelievable. You have Jaden Daniels playing at Heisman level. Like, he should absolutely be in the conversation and feels like he's not because Matt House just is incapable of doing his job at the moment. And it's just sad to see. Like I said, the offense is unbelievable. This offense could win a national championship if the defense was even top 100, I feel like.
Yeah, we talked about this. Nathan and I kind of talked about this. I think if you give LSU the defense that they had last year and the offense that they have right now, dude,
they're 5-0.
They're 5-0.
Yeah, you'd be 5-0, 4-1. I mean, at the end of the day, you got shut out in the second half against Florida State.
Yeah,
I don't know if the defense fixes that, but
I think the scheme that comes with. I think Matt House was playing so much zone at that point that he was so scared.
I mean, we're still playing too much zone.
Exactly. But like I said, if you're an LSU fan, this is what it has to make you mad. It's one thing that your defense is bad, but then you look at what your offense is doing, and it just makes everything seem even worse because of how successful the other side of the ball is. You have the most explosive offense you will have for a while. Like, I don't think the offense is going to be this good in years, and your defense is just not giving you any sort of fire. You think, like I said, at one point, you would think let's say last week, just one stop is what they needed in the second half, and they just couldn't do it. They could not do it. So down the road, what has to be fixed?
Yeah, I think it's more man coverage. I think it's more blitzes. I mean, if I'm Matt House right now, you really just got to simplify it because you're trying to do too much to cover up what you perceive as a lack of talent instead of just playing to guys' strengths. You have good blitzing linebackers. You have good man coverage corners. Let them blitz and let them play in man coverage.
I already said I think this defense is past the point of no return. I really don't think there's anything you can do at this point to go down the road and fix it. But as far as like in the future, recruit more defensive talent, like especially in state. It feels like LSU has missed out on a lot of in-state guys, and part of that is just from the last years of Edo and recovering from that disaster. But I mean, man, I'm just tired of seeing, and obviously this isn't defensively, but tired of seeing guys from Louisiana ball out on us, dude. Trey Harris, who had the game-winning touchdown,
Como.
he had the game-winning touchdowns from Lafayette.
Malik's teammate
Exactly.
in high school. Yep.
It's kind of ridiculous, man. Just seeing all these Louisiana guys come and ball on LSU when they were right in your backyard.
You also have to realize, though, LSU, because of the previous regime and the fact that they couldn't keep their noses clean, is still working at a scholarship deficit. You still don't have all your scholarships back. I mean, you're just going to have to deal with guys not being to the level of what we expect is DBU. You're just going to have to live with that for a little bit.
Well, you talk about that, and I think some of it is recruiting, and then some of it, when you lost Corey Raymond, dude.
Yep, it was the swagger, man.
People just didn't know what DBU was, and they didn't know what the past kind of brought to them. But like I said, Corey Raymond knew how to deal with those guys, and maybe not as talented guys, but he sure made them play real hard-nosed football. And now with Steeples, I think he's doing a good enough job for the talent that we have.
At Coach Steeple.
No, not at all. But Corey Raymond, it just shows you how much of a great coach he was.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think Matt House he's got to dumb down the scheme to these guys in a way they can understand and just be successful in playing in a weekly basis. But Brian Kelly has now lost 2 big games this season. He's 4-4 in his last 8. And he seemed to kind of blame his players after this one. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, a lot of the clips and stuff you saw, he was calling out the players. But he also, I mean, me and Andre were at that press conference. He did kind of take a little bit of accountability, and he did say, like, we have to coach better and stuff like that. I don't think he put enough blame on himself and on Matt House, but he's not going to sit here and publicly call out Matt House in a press conference. But as far as the losing 2 big games, like, part of me wants to be mad and is mad about it, but at the same time, the other part of me realizes it is year 2, and that LSU has been pretty spoiled in the last 2 years as far as year 2 coaches, and that was kind of a narrative going into the season too. But it just, I think we're starting to realize just how much of a disaster the end of Coach O's regime was. And I think that we're still kind of seeing the effects of that as far as talent deficits and, like Andon said, scholarship deficits. So, like, I think it is on Matt House. I think I can't force myself to put too much of the blame on Brian Kelly yet.
Well, I sure will. I think another big game that Brian Kelly has just blown. And honestly, you look at the coaching, and this is one of the most frustrating things that lost a game for LSU in this one. The defense we just talked about was not at all ready for Lane Kiffin. And then the time management of the last few drives. You started to play conservative. I don't care how he said that was not the plan. They sure did play conservative. If they played with an attack that they had all game, they would have scored a touchdown on that last drive. I don't care. Just argue with a brick wall. I think Brian Kelly's got to stop making excuses for himself with the guys that he has, because that's not going to help him recruit down the line. It's not. That scares guys away, especially when you're losing games. It's one thing to win and you can blame some stuff on people, but when you're losing games, you cannot do that to the kids.
Yeah, winning cures all, obviously. But when you're not winning, you have to put blame on somebody. I mean, I'm not going to put the blame on Brian Kelly. Because here's what I look at with a head coach. I start worrying about a head coach when the side of the ball that they specialize in starts failing. Look at Jimbo Fisher's offense the past couple years at Texas A&M. They were bottom in the SEC in almost every offensive stat you can name the past couple years. That's when the issues started circling around Jimbo Fisher. this offense is so unbelievable, man. Even with the late in the game stuff that you spoke about, that I'm not necessarily worried about Brian Kelly. I'm more worried about the defensive staff and what we're gonna do there. Because, like you said, when you start blaming players, that hurts recruiting, and it also hurts your coaching staff a little bit, man. Especially your position coaches, because these position coaches are the guys who are seeing these players day in and day out, and they know them not just on a football level, but on a personal man-to-man level. And that's when you start seeing some dissension, is when you throw players under the bus so easily.
Yeah, and staying in the college football world now, there were really no true upsets besides that LSU Ole Miss game. Georgia and USC both had scares, but ended up winning. But let's talk about SEC shaping and college football shaping in general. With Alabama seeming to look more like themselves over the past 2 weeks, do you see them running the table in the SEC West, or can a team like Ole Miss come in and win out?
Yeah, I mean, really, this is a question for next week, because this Saturday, 2:30, you have Alabama going to College Station to play Texas A&M. And I think if Texas A&M wins that game, I think they are the clear-cut favorites in the West for me. But I think if Alabama goes and wins that game, it's Alabama. I'm kind of putting Ole Miss to the side because, like, if we're being really real about it, LSU gave that game to Ole Miss.
Yep.
Oh, easily.
LSU had these guys, and I don't think Ole Miss is there yet to be and I don't think Lane Kiffin is there yet, more importantly, to be a SEC winning coach or a national championship winning coach. And I don't necessarily think he'll ever be there.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. As much as, like, as good as Ole Miss looked, especially offensively in this game, like you said, LSU handed that to them on a silver platter, dude, with a fork and spoon and a bib ready to go, bro. Like, I just don't think that Ole Miss is that good yet. And I think that this game against LSU kind of blew people's opinion out of proportion. I think they'll still, I said this last week too. I think they'll still go lose games that they shouldn't down the line, because that's what Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin do. I think the SEC West is between A&M and Alabama, and I still think LSU can be in that conversation. Even Ole Miss technically could. It's so more wide open than we've ever seen the SEC West, I think. You have those 4 teams all technically have a shot. And I just because I think everybody except A&M has one conference loss, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, with how things shape up down the line and how teams win and lose down the line, I just think that anybody is still in the mix.
I think this is Alabama's division to lose. After watching last week, I think you saw Nick Saban be more electric in years past just in that game against Mississippi State. And like Nathan talked about earlier this year, you can never bet against him. And he shows you why, and he makes you regret it. I think, like we said, Ole Miss is just going to go out and lose to a team like Arkansas on their high from this week. And Ole Miss fans, they are so fine with it because they finally beat LSU in what LSU is going to have a down year, compared to last year. But that's going to be good enough for them because they get a big win at home. Finally, good enough for them.
It's similar to A&M, like when they beat Bama. They're content with mediocrity.
Here's the thing, though. At the end of the day, you got to look at program expectations. For a program like Ole Miss with their resources, their money, their funding, going 8-4, 9-3, and beating Mississippi State and LSU, that's a great season for them. Just because they don't have national championship or bust on their mind every year doesn't mean it's a bad season, though.
No, that's my point. But in the grand scheme of college football, it's not a good season.
Yeah, but for them and for the SEC, my pride is hurt losing to Ole Miss as an LSU
I agree.
student and as an LSU fan. My pride is hurt. But like y'all said, you look at some of the tough games. You talked about Arkansas.
Dude.
The week after, they got to go to Auburn.
Georgia.
They have to play at home against Texas A&M, and then they go to Georgia the week after.
Yeah.
And
They
you
will
still
lose.
have
Oh, they're done.
They'll lose at least 2 of those games.
and you still have the Egg Bowl to play, which is your biggest rivalry game, and you know that Mississippi State is going to play up and look to play spoiler if you get through that gauntlet.
Exactly. But is Georgia comfortable in the East? And should they be worried about this Kentucky game this week?
Yes. And me, Raven, and Jaden talked about this on the Sunday show, that this is a serious Kentucky team year in and year out now. Mark Stoops is doing a great job with those guys. I think they really should be worried because this is a solid Kentucky defense. They control the clock. They run the ball really well. This is a very classic early 2000s SEC team, and they almost feel like a throwback to your childhood. And I really like watching Kentucky, man. I really do. I think they're a real threat.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that Georgia at this point cannot afford to be comfortable. And I think that the fact that they got away with that win in Auburn, I think they're kind of it's getting
Shows
to
you a
them.
lot.
Yeah. I think they're okay. This isn't the same Georgia last year's. They're okay with just getting away with that win. And
last year's team would not have been.
No.
Right.
Last year's team would have
Blew
you
out.
saw what happened after they beat Missouri in that close game. I'm pretty sure the rest of the games that season they blew everybody out the water.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this Georgia team has that same fire and build to them. And I think that they'll continue to have close games, and they have to lose one eventually. And I think Kentucky's a great contender for that.
Yeah, I think this Kentucky-Georgia matchup is going to mean more this year than any year it has in the past, and that's a lot for me to say. Kentucky is coming off a wonderful week, like you said, and in rushing the ball. Georgia struggled against the rush against Auburn, so that just shows you, in my opinion, it's anyone's game. This game completely shapes the SEC East. I think the winner of this goes to Atlanta, straight up. Like I think,
I agree.
Runs the table. But are there any teams in the SEC that we might, be surprised by?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you had to pick one, it'd be Texas A&M,
Yep.
especially with Connor Wigman out and former LSU quarterback Max Johnson being the guy there. I think that they are. Yeah, but he played well, man. You could talk all you want, but the dude played well, and Bobby Petrino, the offensive coordinator, really likes him. He really likes his skill set, and so does Jimbo Fisher. This is a good Texas A&M offense. They're a really good football team, somehow still unranked. I think a lot of college football media, they lost to Miami and they just casted Texas A&M off and said, oh, they're going to lose 4 or 5 games. Nah, dude. This is a really good squad.
And you see that with the games they've been scheduled too, with the time slots they've been getting.
Yeah, man. What do these guys have to do to play a night game? You got Bama coming to town.
All my buddies at A&M have been complaining about that.
CBS loves them some Texas A&M.
They do, though. They do, though. And they love the Texas A&M Alabama matchup. I think that game has been on CBS for like the past 4 years.
I'm so for it too because it's like
it fits, man. It feels like there are certain games.
Gary Danielson can enjoy his last year covering Alabama because like I'm so done with him.
To me, there are certain games that feel like 2:30 on CBS.
This is one.
Texas A&M Alabama, LSU Auburn, Florida Georgia, games like that. They just feel like 2:30 on CBS. They've done it for like 5 years now. More power to them as long as it's not LSU.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I'd also have to go with A&M, and I think maybe Kentucky too. Like we just talked about, if they go out and beat Georgia, I mean, like what's stopping them from that point?
Yeah, I don't think I think any team is going to be A&M. Like I said, this week against Bama at Kyle Field, this is realistically the SEC West right here. But still, with an SEC schedule like theirs, they could still go out and lose a game to somebody that they shouldn't. But with USC still having their issues on defense, and like we said, Georgia not being as dominant, who would be in your updated college football playoff for the end of the year, if you had to guess?
Right now, I guess this is a double-edged sword here because you have the top 4 teams that the rankings are going to love. Teams like Georgia, teams like USC, but I don't necessarily think that these teams are the 4 best teams in college football. I'm going to give you the rankings answer, and I think that's Georgia, Texas, Florida State, and Michigan.
At the end. That's your prediction for the end.
I think USC is going to stumble just because that defense is horrendous. Yep. I think that they fall away. I don't think Georgia, even if they lose a game, is really going to fall away. I think it'll be those 4 teams in any sort of machination in order.
If you put USC in the SEC right now, they are LSU.
Absolutely.
That's what they. That's exactly what they are. As for my 4, I'm gonna say in no particular order, but I'm gonna say Florida State, Texas. I'm gonna go Michigan and USC. I think Georgia misses out.
You think USC gets in? I think this is how I have it. I like we said, I think USC is gonna find a way to lose to at least 2 more teams this season. Starting with Notre Dame. Notre Dame's gonna go out and beat the heck out of USC in a few weeks. Washington.
Estime, the running back for Notre Dame, is unbelievable, dude. He reminds me of a young Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and then Washington, you have to play Washington, and also Oregon. Oregon's the scariest Pac-12
And
team right
they
now.
still have to play Utah as well.
Yeah, exactly. But Utah is without Cam Rising, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. But teams that are sticking out to me is like Texas with that elite defense that they have. I think for now, if I had to predict my end of the season bracket right now, it would be Michigan at the 1, Texas at the 2, Florida State at the 3. I think they win out easily. And then Washington. I think Washington sneaks in at the 4. I think a Pac-12 team's going to get in. It's not going to be USC. And I think Georgia goes out and loses.
I think that is the correct top 4 football teams in the country right now.
Yeah.
And I'd probably have Penn State at 5, USC at 6, Georgia at like 7.
And I'd have like Ohio State kind of creeping at like 6 or 7 too.
But I do think that any combination of Florida State, Texas, Michigan, and Washington are the top 4 teams. Right?
And I could easily see at the end of the season, it all comes down to Washington and Oregon. I think that's the 2 teams that it comes down to. I think that's going to be the last team fighting for a spot there. But now that we are through Week 4 in the NFL, we can finally talk about the continued problems for another Louisiana team in the New Orleans Saints, who just did not show up to play at all on Sunday against a Bucs team that is not very good this year. So the biggest question this week and moving forward into next week is, what is the issue with Pete Carmichael, and why can he not get this offense to move the ball?
Because he rode a guy's coattails for all these years and kept a job, even though he never actually had to call plays and call an offense and build an offense.
Because he's not a good offensive coordinator. Just
Like
flat
that.
out.
End of discussion. Next question.
Dude,
He's just not a good offensive coordinator. Next question.
he could not lead this offense to a high school championship.
He couldn't lead a peewee offense.
And
He-
the car could beat this New Orleans
if
Saints
you
team,
put
bro.
The offense, maybe, dude. I'm telling you.
if you put the New Orleans Saints offense in the local peewee league, they would not score a point.
Yeah, the inability to get your playmakers more involved shows how this man should not be employed. The guy is throwing it on 3rd and shorts in a game where you were starting to run the ball effectively. He's throwing the ball with Taysom Hill also, rather than letting him run it. It's just simplifying the offense, and this guy cannot seem to do it for these guys. I'm like, dude, this guy, like I said, I would send him on a plane to a private island and let him stay there.
Me and Andrew were talking about this. We said something about like, Andrew said
I
something
would've
like leave him at the
Leave him
tarmac.
on the tarmac.
And I was like, yeah, it was a home game. I'd still go drop him off at the New Orleans
The
airport and
airport.
just leave him on the tarmac anyway.
Go drive to the airport, leave him on the tarmac with his bags, man. Tell him to go
Just to
fly
leave him there.
wherever he's
Let him
from.
think about it. You know, I say lock him in a dark room.
Needs an Aaron Rodgers darkness retreat.
Yeah, he needs
bro.
a darkness retreat, man.
I think he needs a little more than that,
it's
man.
just so-
Up the dosage or something.
It's just so bad, man. It's just so bad. And like, here's the problem: mid-season coordinator fires happen all the time in the NFL. Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis will not do it because
No.
Pete Carmichael is their guy. So I hope you're ready for what? We're through week 4. We
4
have
more weeks of this.
14 more weeks of watching Pete Carmichael call plays for the New Orleans Saints. Get used to it, buddy, because it ain't getting any better.
Yeah.
Dude, like I said, lock this guy away, throw away the
Let us
key,
call
brother.
let fans call a hotline.
Like
You pay
like
$1.50.
the fan-controlled football league
Yes.
with Johnny Manziel.
You pay $1.50. You pay the cellular fees. You get to call a play. You get right into Derek Carr's headset. You get to call a play, bro.
I'm telling you now, these boys would be so much better off doing the ask coach option in the Madden plays. I couldn't, like, dude. Instead of asking Pete Carmichael, they need to be asking
Ask
John Madden, dude.
man. Ask
This is
John
awful.
Madden.
I cannot stand to watch this anymore. I can't go through this anymore.
I have never not wanted, like, I've been a Saints fan my entire life. I've never not wanted to watch the Saints more than I do right
Oh,
now,
yeah.
even when we
bad.
sucked.
I'm more at peace with myself not watching the game.
Dude, like, did you see it's been going around the clip, the like reverse that got called?
Yeah,
on-
which made
on, like,
no sense.
Tried to do a trick play and we lost yards on it. Dude, as time passes by, though, should Dennis Allen start to let someone else call plays?
Who else is going to call the plays?
Dude, I don't know.
Dude,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, let
Give
the
us the
fans-
That's what I'm
hotline.
saying.
Give us the
Imagine-
hotline.
Imagine like a dude from Saint Bernard, bro, calling in.
Hey, I think
Give me 4 verts, Derek.
let's get
Come on.
Annan on the sideline doing audibles, like
Yeah,
the little hand movements, right? And then you could get, me with a little microphone, like I'm
Look, bruh,
Kevin
I'm telling you.
James.
Give me 4 verts, tip ball. Give me 4 verts.
But what should the Saints implement more into the offense? What sorts of things can they feed off of?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be serious about it
Yeah,
for a minute,
let's
I
do
know
that.
we've kind of made a joke about this entire segment, but if you want to be serious about it, you got to figure out how to be able to run the ball more effectively and give Derek Carr just a little more breathing room to not have to be Superman, because Derek Carr isn't Superman. He's not a guy that can just make these incredible plays. He's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback.
And unfortunately for him, it's what Saints fans expect him to be.
Yeah, the
but
sad part is everybody expects him to be Drew Brees, but he's not. Nobody's Drew Brees.
I said that either last
Yeah.
week or the week before.
There will never be another Drew Brees. So you got to figure out ways to get this offense to work. You have Kamara back. You'll be getting Jamal Williams back in a couple of weeks. You got to figure out how to run the ball effectively and just call smart plays. Just you get paid to do this. Be smart about it.
Yeah. I like this. Like we said, the short pass is what the Saints are super successful doing, as well as those short rushes. It was 3rd and 5, and we threw a long shot to the sideline this
Yeah,
week.
you're throwing deep shots outside the numbers on 3rd and 5. That's not smart football. That's something that 14-year-old kids playing Madden do. That's not something guys who get paid to be NFL coaches do.
Well, and I'm sure you guys heard this stat, but Alvin Kamara had 13 catches for 3 yards.
33 yards.
Yeah, that should show you just how.
Shout out my fantasy, but like, dude, that is not looking good on
No,
paper.
that should show you how this offense works. 13 catches for 33 yards. I
Yeah.
didn't even know that was possible.
To all the folks listening, if you had Alvin Kamara in a PPR league this week, good job.
B.
I
Yeah.
mean, dude.
Yeah. But how long do you think it takes for this offense to show any success, if any? I mean,
When is the offseason?
oh man.
Yeah.
When is the offseason?
I'll say a few more weeks. I think
I
think
think
this
this
team's gotta
offense
gel.
will turn a corner when everybody gets healthy and everybody gels together. Because,
it's just gonna be too late.
yeah, at
I'm
that
tired of
point, it's
saying
going to
that,
be too
New
late.
Orleans. I'm tired of saying when people get healthy.
Yeah.
You hear it with the Saints, you hear it with the Pelicans. At what point are we going to
Fire.
I mean, fire the medical staff.
It's the
Oshner.
Oshner people, bro. They hire these Oshner staff.
get
on
our
the-
This
lady-
on-
podcast has now turned into an Oshner diss.
We
Need
are
to
an
get- hey,
Oshner hate podcast.
Our Lady of the Lake, if you're listening to us, we love you. We want you to go sponsor the Saints, the Pelicans, Tulane, everybody.
Well, what do you see for the Saints' future this season? I mean, how does this change? What's the record, you think?
It's not going to change. We'll win 7 or 8 games because the
Ooh.
defense will just be unbelievable, and you'll figure out a way to keep teams out of the end zone. A defensive touchdown here, 4 turnover game there. You'll figure out a way to win some football games. But, dude, in the offense, in its current iteration, it ain't good, bro.
Yeah, and in its current iteration, that's kind of my point. I do still have faith that they'll turn it around. And call me a blind fool or whatever, but I think that it can happen. It's just a matter of whether it will. You heard in the press conferences after this game, Dennis Allen saying, "Yeah, we need to make some changes." Which, for me, hearing anything out of Dennis Allen's mouth doesn't matter. The dude is a habitual liar, bro, and I'm kind of tired of it. But you heard Alvin Kamara in the locker room saying, "Yeah, we're gonna have some tough conversations real soon." And hearing that from a guy like Kamara, who's a big leader on the team, makes me feel a little better about the rest of the season. It's only week 4. We've got 2 losses.
Yeah.
I think you can still win 9, maybe 10 if they turn it around.
I'm interested to see. I'm sorry to cut you off right there. I'm interested to see. You talk about the Kamara quote. I'm interested to see if there's an upswelling in the locker room from the offensive guys against Pete Carmichael, and that's something that will. I'm being serious.
Like the
probably.
microphones cut out, you know,
Yeah.
cut out. So
Like,
maybe we just call our own plays
No,
at
that's
some
not,
point, right?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that at some point the offensive guys have to say, guys, we are too talented to be letting the play calling drag us down.
Yeah, to let-
Coach, you got to get rid of this guy. He's hurting us.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the
I
day,
agree.
they're all co-workers. They all
Yeah.
work for the
Yeah.
New Orleans Saints. At the end of the day, if one of your co-workers isn't doing their job, they need to go.
I agree.
yeah.
I completely agree. And like Nate said, I'm so tired of looking at Dennis Allen and that big old zit on his face. And I'm so tired of watching him lie through the skins of his teeth. Like I said, dude, I'm going off this podcast. I'm so tired of it. Stop giving me the excuses. Oh, we know we have to be better. Oh, we're so disappointed. Yeah, you're disappointed. You're just lucky to have a job, dude. I mean, I see this team winning maybe 8 games for the rest of the season. But like, dude, you play the Bears, you play in some trash teams over those games. Congrats if you win 8 games against
If the
these.
Saints lose to the Bears, that will be my breaking point.
Oh yeah, I'm burning.
I hope you're ready.
I'm burning
We're
someone's
not losing
jersey.
to the Bears.
That game will finish like 9-6.
Yeah,
As
12
long as
yeah,
Saints are on
12-7
that end of
something.
the 9, bro, I'm like fine. But
yeah.
I'll tell you
I
what,
cannot lose to the Bears.
you
bro.
are going off this podcast.
I am,
man.
dude. I am. But lastly, we're gonna talk about the Dolphins and Bills game. These are both two teams that could very well and go make a Super Bowl run with the amount of firepower on both sides of the ball. The Dolphins were exposed on defense this weekend, and the Bills proved themselves big time in this one. So first off, for the Bills, you finally see Josh Allen play a game where you throw 4 touchdowns and it don't turn it over. Is he finally improving, and what could that mean for Buffalo down the stretch?
I don't think it's an improvement thing. I think it's just a form thing. Players go in and out of this. Is talked a lot about in soccer. Players go in and out of form where they're playing well and they're not really playing well. It could be a lot of factors that go into that. I think Josh Allen is finally starting to get into form. He feels in shape. He feels good about the football he's playing. This is a bad Dolphins defense. We've known that since week 1 when they gave up 36 points to the Chargers. But I just think that this Bills offense is finally rounding out into form and starting to really start up the engine.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like Anton said, I think it's less of an improvement, more of just going in and out of phases. I think later down the season, you will see Josh Allen continue to throw interceptions because that's just who Josh Allen is. He likes to mash the buttons like he's playing Madden and just going crazy when things start to get a lot out of hand. He mashes all the buttons and tries to do everything himself, and he ends up throwing picks. That's just who he is as a quarterback. Doesn't make him a bad quarterback, but it is just one of his flaws, and that's just how it is. As far as the Dolphins defense, I'm not ready to count out them and this Dolphins team yet. They are dealing with a lot of injuries right now. I'm pretty sure Jalen Ramsey is also
He's coming
hurt.
back.
Yeah, but
He's coming back soon.
they have a lot of injuries there. They have injuries on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I think later on down the line, the Dolphins will be good still. They'll be fine. And you also, the Dolphins, this was a point I heard on Pardon My Take this week. They were saying how it's good that the Dolphins got this game at Buffalo out of the way early in the season.
Yeah.
Because now later in the season, you don't have to go to Buffalo when it's freezing cold. You get to play Buffalo in Miami when it's like 50-something, 60-something degrees in December or whenever.
Yeah. I think if Josh Allen can continue to play this kind of football, obviously that's a reach, but these guys are going to make a Super Bowl. It's as simple as that. I think he's starting to make the smarter decisions. He's capable as well. Obviously, the Dolphins' defense wasn't, great, but let's talk about that. Can the Dolphins still win the AFC East, or did fans kind of jump the gun with how good that offense was?
Yeah, I mean, the offense is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Mike McDaniel's a really good head coach. You got to figure it out on the defensive end. I still think that we're 4 weeks into the season. I'm not closing the book on anybody except for the Bears, the Broncos, and the Cardinals.
Yep.
As far as you can't do anything, go ahead and chalk it up to next year. This Dolphins team can still very easily go win the division. I mean, knock on wood, I'm not saying that I want this to happen, but Josh Allen can go out and tear his Achilles in practice.
Right.
And we're looking at the Bills in a completely different way, So I think everything is on the table for Miami. Even if no injuries happen, I still think they're a really good football team.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of the most competitive divisions, I think, in the NFL, and especially between those two teams. And I just, like you said, and it's just way too early to be saying, they're out of it.
Yeah, like I said, I think they're capable, but they've got a lot of things to figure out on that defensive side of the ball with all the talent they have. I mean, the good news is that they get Jalen Ramsey back in a few weeks. That's going to be a huge help. But give me your updated Super Bowl picks for both the NFC, AFC, and then the winner.
I'm going to go Bills 49ers. And I got
Same.
San Francisco winning, man. I think they're just a buzzsaw. That team is so unbelievably talented. You saw Christian McCaffrey 4 touchdowns over the week.
Yeah.
Shout out Christian McCaffrey. Helped me score 150 points in fantasy this weekend with that. So.
But yeah, man, the Niners are a buzzsaw, dude. I could see the Chiefs coming out of the AFC as well just because of the experience factor. But I'm going to go with the 49ers Bills, and I think the Niners are going to take it.
Yeah, I've got the Niners absolutely plowing through. I think they win
Through
the
who?
Super Bowl easy. Out of the AFC, I'm going to ride with the Chiefs. I just think that I think they have a couple problems, but they'll do what the Chiefs do and figure it out.
It's the experience, man.
Yeah, exactly. I cannot bring myself to count out Patrick Mahomes
Yeah.
and Andy Reid
And Taylor Swift.
and Taylor Swift,
Oh,
man. They got
dude.
Taylor Swift behind them, dude.
Let's not today. I'm going the same exact thing as Andon. I'm going Bills 49ers, but I've actually got the Bills winning. Something inside of me is just telling me to go Bills this year. But lastly, best segment of this podcast. Give me favorite part of the week, baby. Give me your poo-poo Broussard of the week. So many candidates this week. And let's go you first.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Monday Night Football.
Yep.
Seahawks, Giants. Nobody's real. I expected Seattle to win this game pretty comfortably. What I did not expect was Daniel Jones
Ooh-wee.
and the Giants' offensive line to give up 11 sacks,
Stinky
2 interceptions, one of which a 97-yard pick six,
to a rookie.
and 2 fumbles lost. Daniel Jones is not the guy. I was talking to one of our DJs, Mel, earlier today about this. Daniel Jones is not that dude. I don't care if you had a brick wall in front of him as an offensive line. He's still not that guy. He's just not him.
Yep.
He gets the poo-poo Broussard easily.
Yeah,
I mean, he just played horrible.
He was
you
throwing.
could also give it to the offensive line.
Yeah,
No, the
he
offensive
could.
line, this is a co-poo-poo
Gotcha.
Broussard. Daniel Jones and the
And
Giants' offensive
They
line
gave
are
up
both getting
11 sacks.
11
the entire
sacks.
Giants offense at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah, I mean, the whole offense can take it, but particularly the 6 guys who throw 2 picks, lose 2 fumbles, and give up 11 sacks.
You're just going in order?
I mean, yeah, sure. But like to go off of yours, man. I mean, Daniel Jones was throwing hissy fits, looking like a kindergartner. He was throwing
So-
the tablet, man, looking
Yeah,
like Tom
Dabble,
Brady,
too.
man. Dabble was just like, oh my goodness, what a prima donna. I'm gonna go with Matt House. This is the easy answer. We kind of talked about this. How could you not give it to Matt House? 55 points to Ole Miss when their receivers are mid, offensive line mid,
Not just 55 points, 700 yards.
700 yards.
Most in school history.
Dude, I couldn't even run 700 yards. Like, that's insane. Nathan, take it away.
All right, so I'm going to go a little abstract with mine this week.
Yep. This is out pocket.
I'm going to go with the state of Mississippi. So me and Andre traveled this weekend to the Ole Miss game, and just the whole trip was just it was a trip.
It was a trip, man.
On the way in, we're driving through Mississippi. I made a tweet about it. We saw several sites.
Interesting.
We saw a billboard outside of Jackson for an outlet mall that had it said like whatever outlet mall, like come shopping.
Yep.
And the picture was of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ holding shopping bags. And that might have been the most Mississippi thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
We had the rip-off Washington Monument.
We had some kind of, it looked like the Washington Monument. Don't know what it
But
was
half
about.
the size.
Yeah. Don't know what that was. And then what else did we see? We saw a police chase.
We did.
We going down the interstate on the way to Tupelo.
I thought he was getting pulled over. He was not. That
God.
was interesting.
Yeah.
Talk about the species of the deer.
So we're driving down whatever like random country bumpkin highway down
Natchez Parkway.
Hatches Parkway.
We're going to have some words.
There's no lights, nothing. I've got my brights on because otherwise I literally cannot see. And out of the corner of my eye, on the left side, I'm in the left lane, and on the left side of the road, there is a beautiful doe standing there on the very left side of the road, on the very edge, looking right at me. And as soon as I get a half a second later, it jumps out right into the middle of the road. Thank God there was nobody behind me. I had like slam on my brakes, swerve left. The deer starts to run back left.
Stopped in the middle of the
Stopped in
road.
middle of the road.
Pumps the horn.
Then I
Then
swerve
it runs.
swerve right, slam on the horn, and it runs right again and finally gets off the road. So me and Andre had a near-death experience in Mississippi, so that contributes to the poo-poo Broussard.
Look, I'll say this. The state of Mississippi, I can't even talk about it. I can't even say it right.
he can't even say it.
Dude. I see why so many people smoke cigarettes down there. Look, there is nothing better to do out there, man. There's just woods and a really
more
cool
woods.
moon.
Yeah,
The moon was massive.
We did
oh my
see the
God,
moon.
that
It
was
was
awesome.
awesome. Yeah.
That was pretty dope.
But yeah, that's all I have to say.
And we drove through a town in Mississippi called Egypt.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know the saying BFE, man. That's exactly where we were. So
Literally.
you know, I like Yeah, my poo-poo Broussard goes to the state of Mississippi, especially with how Ole Miss fans were.
Ole Miss fans throwing the trash
Yeah.
on the field. I get it was a bad call. Boo-hoo.
That combined, we went and talked to some Ole Miss fans, and I
They're
just
just dumb.
just
Not
as
educated.
rocks, man.
Like, I don't like undermining people, but when it comes to Ole Miss, I think it's fine. Dude,
At the end of the day-
these guys, I mean, they're just
I
not
just-
educated.
It was
You-
literally, like when
why
you
why
know,
is let's for example, you ask them why is the Grove better than LSU tailgating? Look around. That's their only excuse.
without fail?
You ask them what a hottie toddy is, and they couldn't even tell you. Just uneducated.
Yeah.
Hey.
One of them also said
Tui
we-
family,
we
I could
kinda-
see definitely God Michael or
one of them we pressured. We kind of pressed them like, okay, they told us to look around as far as why the tailgate's better. We said we pressed him. We said why though? Like, don't just tell us to look around. Why?
why?
What makes it better? And he told us that the food in Oxford, Mississippi,
said the
was
beautiful women, which was valid.
Ole Miss got Oxford, Mississippi, got some very attractive women. They do, but
The
there's
food
a
part,
reason
dude.
they're 50th and we're 49th, baby.
Yeah.
49th. I'm holding on to it.
That's
The
exactly
whole
it.
point of the state of Mississippi is that Louisiana isn't last.
Is it
in
last
everything.
place?
Everything.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the man told us that the food in Oxford, Mississippi, was better, and
Those
just-
guys were from
You
Michigan,
being
though.
serious?
Yeah, and you also, just for starters, you're not allowed to grill in the Grove.
No,
So
straight
the-
only red solo cups. You are not allowed to listen to loud music.
Yeah, it
Just
was
so
overrated.
many weird things. Yeah.
It's like a
was
wine
quiet.
tasting.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
a tailgate. That's a wine tasting.
So,
Yeah.
like, but as far as the food, it was the biggest delicacy there.
Chicken on a stick.
Not even that. I'm talking about tailgating delicacy is cold Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets that they catered. That's like what they eat. And then
Yep.
going off the press box food too.
yeah.
Look, I'm telling you right
Look,
now,
Ole
Baton
Miss,
Rouge
step your
food
game up, dog, because that
Jambalaya
fake jambalaya that you served.
should not be yellow.
Oxford,
Like-
Mississippi.
Like Andre's shirt
Yeah.
yellow.
Oxford, Mississippi. Vaught Hemingway Stadium. Mississippi University.
State of Mississippi.
Step the game up, man.
You are my poo-poo Broussard of the week.
You are Poo Poo Broussard.
Well, that will do it for us today. Big thank you to Nathan Messina and Andon Brabham for joining me. I'm your host, Andre Champagne, and this has been the Hodges Huddle.
Oh, yeah.